start the town board meeting. In the absence of Mr. Dino, I'll be conducting the meeting tonight. Someone, have everybody seen the town report? Well, see, someone approved the minutes prior meeting November 10th.
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilor Rovers made the motion. That the minutes of the 11/6 regular town board meeting be approved as submitted by the town clerk, seconded by Councilor Devon. Roll call, Councilor Rovers. Yes. Councilor Spiegel.
Yes.
Councilor Devon.
Yes.
Councilor Trombley.
Yes.
And absent Supervisor.
Okay, we'll open up now for public comment. So I see quite a few people here who wants to be first.
I'd like to go first, Bucket, if I might. I invited most of these people here so that the community would get a first-hand thought of what the farmers are thinking, and it basically concerns the farmland development rights in Chazy, and probably throughout the county and throughout the state. But every day in the United States, we lose 3,000 acres of productive farmland to sprawl development. Today, more than 75% of our fruits and vegetables and dairy products are produced near urban areas. Every single year, we lose an area of farmland nearly the size of Delaware. And I was at the last, town board meeting, and when I was here, I got a pretty negative reception, from both some of my fellow, town board members, comments to the point of, why should the state of New York be spending taxpayers' money, to buy development rights? Well, the state of New York has, its own reasons for putting $12 million into the budget to buy, development rights. Basically, I'm sure that there's some people on that, the state level that probably are concerned about the, land that's being lost to development. And we do need to eat 3 times a day, and we're probably going to need to eat for another, 200 or 300 years. So what I did is I went back to the town of Chazy Comprehensive Land Use Plan. And I think I gave every one of the board members, one of these copies in front of you. And if you look through there, this is dated June 91, which is when we put the zoning and the planning in effect here in Chazy. And what they did is they sent out a letter to, all the people in the village as to what do they feel, is important. I'll just read you through here, page by page. I only took out about 12 pages. Page 1, it says, poor soils in Chazy tend to be wet and poorly drained with high clay content. In other words, not suitable for septic systems. Very little of the land within the town of Chazy is well suited for conventional on-lot septic systems. I didn't make the rules. I mean, that's what they are. It's all part of this survey. On page 2, it'll show significantly, slightly to moderately limited, significantly limited. And you look on the barcodes, and they show, soils limited for septic systems, and there's quite a bit of it. Then you go to the next page, and it shows soils suitable for development. They have 3 ratings: unsuitable, poor, and poor to fair. And you'll have a dark, black line, a white line, and a cut-up line. And if you look on that page, you'll see about 10 to 15%, and that's in my judgment, of the town of Chazy is suitable for development. Most of the farmland and the open land is not suitable. if you follow that map. You go on the next page, it is, apart from the results of the citizens questionnaire survey late, when it was done here in Chazy, that it is important for the visual landscape in the towns are to be open farmland, apple orchards, scenic views of the lake, historic structures and others, both in the hamlet and rural area. All of this stuff, I can go through the whole, thing, but basically, what they're saying is they want to see, the open spaces, see the farmland, all of that stuff remain, in place. Put a high value on, viewing the lake for tourists. On the next page, it shows the views of the lake. Well, in Chazy, we've got some, on Route 9, where Drew's Poultry and Gregware's are, on the lake shore where Gregware's are, and that's a pretty nice view from up there. We'll put 10 houses across there, and you're not going to have any. One of the other significant places was on the Stetson Road. Another place was on the Lakeshore Road. Another one was, by the Chazy River, and one a little further. There's another one by the apple orchard where they have their water tanks, mainly because the road comes right up to the lake. But these are all just, in that comprehensive plan as some of the assets and, valuables that are in Chazy. With the exception of the Lake Champlain, this is on the next page, perhaps the single most important national resource in the town of Chazy is its farmland. Agriculture has long been maintained a local economy, and it goes further here to say we're 29% of the total farmland, is open farmland. It's only 29% of the total, Chazy. If you look at Chazy, they've got 11,923 acres. That's tillable land or farmland. That's 29%. I would say probably half of that land is classified, there's 3 classifications, A, B, and C, by the states, significantly. That's probably would be, maybe 15%. And I submit to, my fellow board members and to the community is 15%. If you took half of this 11,000 acres, too much land to set aside for our future generations to produce crops on, to help feed the nation. I don't think it is, but whatever. Creation of agricultural zones is on the next page. It says here that if there were ag districts, it would be, pretty good idea to create some agricultural zones. Well, what are agricultural zones? Pretty much the same thing as what, buying the development rights. Basically, the only activities in agricultural zones is going to be, farm and farm-related practices. And I just found it amazing when I went looking for this, and who put me onto it was one of the, town planners committee people, and when I was looking through it, I was amazed to find, it said here on another page, creating such a zone in the town of Chazy is justifiable upon the following factors. Residents are overwhelmingly in favor of continuing farming. See questionnaire. In other words, they did a survey, when they did this for the zoning and stuff, they were all in favor of this. So I just find it amazing, that there's so many people, feel that it's not a good idea. Here's another one on another page. Some more good reasons to, put in a zone, agricultural zone. You go to the further, which is page 10, but on 67, possible location for such zones, including the following: a 500 feet bumper along both sides of the little Chazy River, starting in Chazy and continuing to the lake shore. Because of the flooding and because there's low-lying areas in there, but it's all pretty much in here. Go another page further. People are very strongly in favor of maintaining the rural charter and visual quality of the town. And it's open spaces and agriculture and open spaces. You know, that's basically, you know, what I've got to say on it. You know, I would like anybody that's, you know, here in the audience or whatever, you know, what they think. You know, we have presently 3 people here. Jim Gagne was on that ag board with the county. Jay Drew is. Trying to look around. There's, you know, 3 or 4 people, you know, 3 of the people here. So I'm sure that, you know, if you have any questions for those people, they will be, you know, glad to answer.
Just a correction, Jane Gregoire.
Oh, Jay, what did I say?
Jane Drew.
Just
And I'd like to.
I'll tell you, it makes me nervous to be doing this shit, but anyway.
state your name and address.
I'm Jane Gregoire
Yeah.
from 38 Gregoire Lane in Chazy. And as Dutch said, I am on the Farmland Protection Board. And one of the things that Dutch didn't mention is when we put together the Farmland Protection Plan, one of the factors that we considered was the point that that when you develop the land and you have a home on it, it causes more expense to the municipality because you have to provide more services for the people that live there than if you leave that same land open and use it for agriculture, because farmers don't demand the level of services from the town that a development does, and you don't put you don't usually have especially this town where you attract a lot of people because of the school district. You attract a lot of people with school-age children, and they come to the town and put a house up, and they bring more children into the school district, which is another expense. So you have, that was one of the factors that we talked about in the plan for the county, is that when you start doing that kind of development, it actually costs the town more than it does to leave it as open land or agricultural land. I also sit on the advisory board for the Lake Champlain Basin program, and at the inception of that group, farmers felt that the people that put together the basin program were pretty hostile to agriculture. But in the last few years, and after they've done research, and Dr. Mary Watson from UVM is the one that has told me this, that an acre of agricultural land puts less phosphorus and less pollution into the lake than an acre of developed land, especially when you're talking about developed land like in Chittenden County over in Vermont. And actually even less pollution put in when that acre is left forested. And it's almost 10 times as much pollution goes in because the land, people have, a homeowner wants a nice green lawn and they have a septic system, and they'll spend whatever it takes to get rid of all their weeds and everything. Farmers can't afford to waste money on chemicals if they don't need to, so they don't go over applying it unless they want to go out of business shortly because they can't afford to keep putting all that stuff on. There was a couple other points that I had, but they seem to have slipped my mind, but I'll let somebody else mention, and maybe I can come back.
Someone else? You want to go down the line? You want to go next, Bill?
I'd like to mention that Tony is also on that board. I forgot him earlier, too.
I just think that
Give your name and address.
Tony Lapeer, 787 Stetson Road, Chazy. Just one thing you need to also think about, if this money is appropriated to the town, or not to the town, but it's been set aside in the budget, and it's going to go somewhere. And you know, our agricultural community is extremely strong. There are less and less of us, but all the time, but it's a very strong community, and I think that it's very important to your community. I also think that Chazy was built on agriculture through the Miner Institute and what Miner has accomplished. And just knowing that alone, I think it's our duty as a community to continue to support something like this and to bring that money into our county so we can further develop our agriculture community and further develop and strengthen our community. So, it's something I strongly believe in. And I think that you got to really take a hard look at, when you get right down to it, who takes care of you every day. On that thought, I strongly urge for something like this to come to our community and to our farmers. I think it's needed.
I just want to bring up, does everybody realize that in this pack, the thing that bothers, I think, us the most is they have the word that once you designate this farmland, it's forever. It's not for 50 years, it's not for 100 years, it's not for 200 years, it's forever. So I don't know if you've seen Chazy in the last 100 years, if you've taken pictures of what it looks like 100 years ago and what it looks like now, but it's grown substantially. If you look at the pictures that were up at the restaurant, I mean, you look at them 100 years ago, and it's grown substantially. The thing that bothers me in particular is forever's too long. I mean, it's just, 300 years from now, I'm not going to be here, but people are going to need some land to put houses on in Chazy, and in 300 years, I don't know where it's all going to be if we designate, 1,500 acres of farmland. To me, it's just way too long to designate. I don't like that word in their plan.
The other thing you want to remember, stuff, we're only looking at 15% of the land in Chazy. That leaves 60, or 15%, leaves 85% of the land available to be developed on.
Right.
The other thing that, you all want to remember is we can develop. We all, take real pride in Chazy Central School. Talked to Mr. Blair there the other day, and when I first talked to him, he says there's room for 100 more kids in Chazy. So it means we could have 100 more families, move into Chazy if there was houses built. Well, I visited with him a little longer, and he backed it down to 50. So let's say we get 50 new families in Chazy. Do you think the taxpayers of Chazy are going to be excited about getting set up the way Beekman Town was, where they had to add more classrooms, build the school bigger? And now, should Beekman Town go the other way, then they're sitting there with that big monstrosity of a school. And yet we pride ourselves here in Chazy for having a small, rural school. When the 50 kids get here and the classes are too big, they go over, 54 in first grade, I think it is, or 50. Then they have to make a third classroom. We don't have any extra classrooms right now in Chazy Central. Our classes are not filled to capacity, so there is room for, in some classes, 5 kids, some classes 4 kids, some classes 10 kids. But what then? Then you come back to the taxpayers and say, hey, let's build a bigger school. I mean, then you gotta have more buses. I mean, it's endless.
And I think to get through this a little easier, we'll hear out the people that want to speak. Then when we get done, if the board has any questions, we'll ask them at that time. Who would like to be next? I think Mr. Gregoire had a...
I'm Joe Gregoire, 38 Gregoire Lane. This program, it should go through, we're for it, and any money that any farmer gets for it is going to be used. They're not taking it to go on vacation. It's going to be spent in the area to improve the farm, maybe make the farm a little bigger or efficient and hire more local people around, and it leaves the land open for in the future so other people can, tourists, come often to the area, and there's going to be more of it in the future, and they like to see the lake. They like to drive by Route 9 and look right down through and can see the boats and sailboats and everything in the lake. And we have people stop by up at Route 9 and take pictures down there of the sailboats in there. And if you have it all houses, and you got to have land, what's going to happen in the future? If all the good farmland, they're only asking for set aside the best farmland. And if they get rid of that, it's already happening. What's going to happen in 100, 200 years? Where are all the people going to get all their food? They're going to go overseas to get it? stuff that, and it's gonna be like a thing with the oil.
Jane Gregoire again. On what my husband said, their basin program has, well, I found out through the basin program that Route 9 by our farm in particular, and is a part of the New York State Scenic Byways. And it got that designation because of, just because of the open land and because you can see the lake, and you've got, and that's important to tourist attraction. They've got bikeways, and they attract tourists to this area with the bike paths through Chazy, and they publish these bike paths. And along the Lakeshore Road, that's designated by the federal government as a scenic byway. And if you let that grow up to brush or start putting houses on there, you're going to lose the value for both those things. And I also, in conversation with Wanda Emmerich from the Minor Institute, they have summer students that come there. And she was commenting that some of the summer students, because they don't bring cars, they're only here for a few weeks, they wanted to wanted to know where the beach was, so they could go swimming during the summer. And then I'd stop to think, these kids, they may have a bicycle, they may have to walk, and where are they? If you live in Chazy, there is no public beach in the town of Chazy. I know Teresa Sayward's got a public beach that she's developed in Willsboro. There's public beach in Rouse's Point. Some of these other towns that are along the lake have public beaches. And we have nothing. We haven't planned anything in the town of Chazy for public access. There's a lot of land that's not prime land. And being on the Farmland Protection Board, we had a number of farms that applied. We narrowed down the list. And the farms in the county that applied, one of the primary questions that they got points for was what type of land and how valuable it is as farmland. And we gave more points to the farms that had the higher percentage of good quality farmland on them. And so the farmland that we're asking to set aside is also high quality land. There was other things that we considered. We considered its well, the aesthetics, its effect on wildlife. A lot of the land along the lake, we just this weekend we must have had 100,000 snow geese on our property this weekend. And you start putting houses up on all these nice pieces of land where you can see the lake, and where the geese are may still land around it, but how are the hunters going to shoot at them when you've got houses all around, and they have to stay a certain distance from residential areas? There's a lot of reasons to have open land, and if you're afraid of having land that is forever wild, just remember that's what the Adirondack Park Agency is. They're forever wild, the whole park. And if you look and see how much people value open land, if you look at the price of land in New York City, in Manhattan, then you look to see that they have set aside that big chunk of land right in the middle of Manhattan for Central Park, because it's valuable to have open space for people. People have to get back, they can't just be in a developed area all the time. So I think with all the land that's on the west side of the Northway in this town, there's plenty of room for people to build houses, and there's less valuable land that people can put a house on. And it's just it just doesn't make sense for a few people to own and put houses on the shoreline and screw it up for everybody else that lives in the town.
Did you have any comments?
Yes, I'm Gordon
That's
Earl.
Gordon Albert, he's with Farm Credit in Vermont. He can give you a little interview as to what the farmers want.
State your name and address.
Gordon Earlbert, I'm the manager of Yankee Farm Credit here in Route 9, Chazy. Comments I've got more go to what Dutch was saying. Why would you want to buy development rights? Part of it is if you want a farm economy, if you want it to continue. The competition from all the other states around you is buying development rights to help keep the price of farmland at an affordable range for farmers so they can operate. We're going through a huge changeover in the dairy industry. There's studies out there from Cornell University that say we're going to have 15 to 25% of the farm numbers left in the next 20 years. If you want to be, if you want part of your economy to utilize the type A and B farmland that's going to survive that process, it's got to be something that helps farmers survive. We can't compete with Western states that can produce things at $2 or $3 less a hundredweight because of the types of soils and climates they've got. Your competition here in the Northeast, in Vermont, and Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, are buying development rights, and is creating capital for farmers. They're expanding their farms, they're purchasing farms. It's allowing them to continue to pass on to the next generation. That's as big a reason as I can come up with for the reasons why you want to buy development rights. It's economics as much as the farmland use and protection, the lake, all the environmental reasons. The economy that drives the agricultural sector comes from you having farms here. If they can't be competitive, they can't buy farmland at competitive prices that allows them to compete with other areas that are producing at lower costs. You lose those farms over time. That's the economic reason that I like to think.
You want to talk now or after?
I can talk now. You want to go down through? I get to talk again? Tom Dashna, 7675 Route 22. I think the point that's being missed here is nobody's getting against farmers. The fact is, there's no threat of development. The monies that are set aside for farm development rights are meant to be set aside where there's a threat of development, residential development, losing farmland. That does not exist in Clinton County. That doesn't exist in the town of Chazy. It does exist in Clinton County. Chazy, it doesn't. Essex County has sold 2 parcels. One of those is out of business. One of those that was sold for $140,000. That farm was sold to an out-of-state resident for $165,000. It's no longer in farming. The write-up that said this is the write-up for selling the development rights. Purchased the development rights on a 293-acre farm located in the town of Westport. The farm has 4 free-stall barns with 300 cow stalls and 100 heifers and dry cow stalls. The barns and milking parlor facilities are modern and can support the farm well into the next millennium. The current owner purchased the farm from his father in 1985. Most of the farm is classified as low-intensity use, which means that a building lot must be 3.2 acres or larger. It is estimated that the farm could be subdivided into 91 building lots. The farm is located on 5 miles of I-87 and 1.5 miles of road frontage. The taxpayers gave $140,000 to this farmer who sold the farm 2 years after they got it. This is about wasting tax dollars. This is about individuals getting multi-million dollars. We're talking about 1,500 acres, $1,500 for 2,000 acres. That's $3 million to continue farming. There's a suggestion that the cost for farmland is less to the town than residential land. That's not true. Farmland, if you're in an ag district, you get less money. The town gets less money in taxes. The roads get damaged with heavy equipment. We have farmers on water district now. There are 2 farmers that are, the school is #1 user of water, and 2 of the other farmers are 2 and 3. The school pays a fair share, the farms pay a residential rate. That's not paying their fair share. If we look at, in the United States, it says in 2002, the top 10% of recipients were paid 65% of the USDA subsidies. Now, from what the Rover farms got, that means that they are in the top 3%. The average farmer got for 3%, $94,000. The remaining 80% of the recipients, 19% of the money, the average recipient got $1,600. top 1%, the average recipient got $175,000. What's happening is in this country, we're getting farmers that are getting bigger and bigger. And they're no longer just the family farms. We've got thousands of cows being milked. You never see cows out in the field. You used to have 50 cows, 100 acres. The cows would wander around. Now we've got cows concentrated in small plots of land, which is creating more pollution. So there are more and more problems that exist here. And this should not be an argument about farm or what. This is an argument about whether we should be buying the development rights on land that has no potential of going out of farming. There is no threat of development here.
Mr. Graham?
I have no comment.
No comment.
Jim,
Who wants to
do
be
you
next?
see any loss to the town by having farms in ag districts and by having farms
Yes,
in this
yes,
program?
yes, ask me. I'm the assessor. Yes, there's a loss. Don't you know there's a loss? You know there's a
Yeah.
loss.
Well, let me, definitely the farmers in the ag district
Okay.
get an exemption on their farmland. There's a ceiling set by the state, and the difference between that ceiling and the assessed value is exempt from taxation. And that probably contributes about, I would say, less than 1% of the total exempt amount of property in the county. I think the county, we're about 4% total exempt.
I can't speak for the county, but I can tell you the town of Chazy for ag value assessments is probably well over $2 million in lost revenues.
Well, then,
That's lost
I'd get
assessment.
right out and buy a farm is what I'd do if I were you.
Pardon?
I'd get right
I
out
got
and buy
one.
one.
I got one. I want to sell the development rights on it.
We're getting off the track here. Who was next speaking on the part? Mr. Graham?
It was 2 million in lost assessment probably, but not 2 million in lost revenues.
No, that's right. I'm talking
Lost
assessment.
assessment, which is not equate to, it's not 2 million of actual tax dollars being lost to the community. It's a total assessed value. It's a bit
Still quite a
different.
bit of money.
I'm sorry?
Still quite a bit of money.
Yes.
$1 million losing taxes on that.
Just a comment on that, and again, I have no involvement, but if we look at how much exemption do we lose by all the properties that come in, and you give them exemptions to develop here, and then we look at what kind of payment do we get from the people who work there. I'm talking especially the Canadian companies who come in, and there's millions and millions and millions and millions.
Those are IDAs though, Jim. Those are usually IDAs, those aren't.
But the revenue lost in them, I always question that.
Those are out of our hands, those are
Exactly,
development
but I'm just
IDAs.
saying, when you look at that, and you look at how they operate, and at the expiration of their time, how it's sold, and someone else picks it up again, it becomes a continuous thing. And look at the monies that could be on the roll that aren't. And I always question why there's not a concern about that.
I don't see that in Chazy.
Pardon?
I don't see that.
No,
in
but I'm
Chazy.
saying, I'm talking as an
I know,
overall
I know,
comment.
but we're
you see.
talking, I'm
He's looking
personally
at
talking
Kelly.
about Chazy right now.
Right.
Who's next wants to speak now?
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so say you got 3,000 acres for sale for land in Chazy, and you take half of that off the market. What does that do to the 1,500 remaining acres property value? Does it raise the selling price of the people that own the remaining 1,500 acres?
Of course it does.
Sure it does.
Supply and demand.
That's right. And does it
That's what happened in Vermont.
raise the assessed value of the remaining 1,500?
If the assessed value is going to
If
go
it's gonna
according to
sell it, it's
sales.
gonna raise it, right? That's my point. What's it gonna hurt?
Okay, anyone else? Let's give some of the others here a chance. Mr. Drew?
Willie's Rule 8957. Bob, I understand that you have a problem with the word forever on this whole issue. The other board members that are struggling with this yes thing, what are the concerns? I think for us to, we're think about all this, we need to know where you folks are coming from. Anyone else that has a problem with it, what is the issue?
I also have the issue with forever, and we don't know what the future of Chazy is going to be. We set aside 1,500 acres of land that can only be for agriculture. You know, if these big farms can go out of business, then that land will remain dormant unless somebody comes along and picks it up or the state gets it back. I just,
My other issue is, if any farmer wants to use land for farmland forever, they can do that without costing the taxpayer a nickel.
Exactly.
So why don't they do it? And it won't cost the taxpayers any money at all for it to happen. They can deed it if they want farmland forever. We have no control over that. But we as taxpayers shouldn't have to pay for that.
We're debating an issue that was decided at the state level when they came up with this $12 million. So I mean, the $12 million this year is there. I mean, that's water over the dam at this point. So getting back to something that Tony said, when you look at the history of Chazy and with Mr. Minor, I think that there is going to continue being a percentage of this land that will continue in farming. And you have to think about where Gordon is trying to get to. You know, farming is competitive, it's tight. When you look at Vermont, I mean, the percentage of acres that are in this program in Vermont, it's huge. It is surrounding us, it's coming. I think that, you know, it's not going to go away. I mean, maybe folks can change the state thinking on it, but I think the program's going to stay around.
Is there anyone else in the firemanship, not in the hall either? Okay.
Trey Green, 113 Minkler Road. Just to start with, in my heart, I truly believe that there's certain areas of land that should be designated forever free. The forever deal, though, is really semantics. What is forever? If things drastically change in 100 or 200 years, you know that will and can be changed also. But if I sell somebody a lot for a house and they build a house there, that's not forever. I mean, what's the difference? You know, that's forever too, I think. So I don't quite see what that problem is, but the zoning plan that was made up over 10 years ago thoroughly addressed this, that one of the most marketable qualities of Chazy was that there are certain areas of it that are agricultural, pristine, and that's what draws people to this area. There's a lot of land, 1,500 acres in the whole scheme of things. I mean, it's such a drop in the bucket. If you're looking for some more land to develop, cut a road from, I don't know what the road is, where Jody Barber lives, just past Chazy Orchards, right up through between Route 9 and the Rad Road. Do you know how many thousands and thousands of acres you have there that have potential to be developed? The farmers who would apply for this, and any of us who would, you know, I didn't at this juncture, but I fully thought that I would have the opportunity to anytime I wanted to. I'm amazed that there's even a controversy about it. You know, I've watched these programs for 20 years, and they've developed and they've proven themselves to be good and to be what the general public is in favor of. Anybody in Chazy who is going to set aside land for that, they're going to set it aside because they want to keep farming, because they have already made a huge, huge investment at extreme risk. Most people would think insane risk to try to be a farmer, to try to preserve this agricultural land in Chazy and this style of life that we all like. And the style of life we have here in Chazy is a good part due that we're agriculturally based. You know, agriculture is the largest industry in New York State, and especially in this area, and that I don't believe will ever change. So there's forever for you. But if people want to preserve this and are making this big risk and want to make sure You know, and part of the reality of farming is that you need some land, you need some space. You want to be a responsible farmer and have buffer zones around the parts that can be developed. Any farmer's gonna not put in the parts of their property that they think have some potential to be developed and to bring in the type of thing that I think you're thinking of and that you want. But the reality in Chazy is how fast can that ever happen? I mean, it's not like the population of this country is growing at leaps and bounds, and there's a lot of people begging to come up here. The people that are begging to come up here are the people who will pay for certain areas a good amount of money, increase our tax base on a small amount of land, but want to come here because they know predominantly there's agriculture here. And if they know that a lot of it is here forever, I believe that makes it even more attractive. But to get caught up on this forever thing, I think is just semantics, and you know, really think of the reality of that, and think of what the farmers are really asking for and want to do, and what makes Chazy real attractive, and what's brought us to this point, to make it the community that it is, and to have the aesthetics that we have here. I think those are the real bottom lines. And you know, when you look at that plan, that the plan says that, and that was done. You look at the survey that came back from it with a 42% response rate. That's amazing. I mean, any good surveyor, if they got 20%, they're doing handsprings because people don't respond. They had a huge response to that survey, and it says exactly what we're talking about here. And I think that really ought to be taken into consideration too. I mean, that's the official document that we went by. So, you know, the town went by. So, I think those are some of the main things to think about.
Come back to this. Is there anybody else out in the hallway? Want to speak on this issue? Come up to the doorway.
Lance Rovers, I live at 398 North Farm Road. And I feel along the same lines as Trey in the forever deal. I mean, new programs come every 50 years, new administration comes every 50 years. To think that this will be set aside forever, I really don't feel that that's the case either. I mean, we want to grow up in a community that's an agricultural community. Let's face it, otherwise we'd all live in Plattsburgh, wouldn't we? I mean, who would really want to live in Plattsburgh in and amongst the city? We'd like to live in the country, we want to see, we want to go out and have our kids be able to play in the yard and whatnot, because there's a huge population of people around. We know our neighbors. I mean, I know everybody that lives on my road, I know pretty much everybody in town, and I'd like to stay living that way. And setting aside a little bit of land and whatnot so that we can live that way, I think is a good idea.
Anyone else?
I just add to Willie's point that this money is going to be spent. The question is whether it's spent in the right place or in land that's developable or not. This money is going to be spent. We're not going to decide here whether these taxpayer dollars are going to be spent. It's been decided they are going to be spent. Does Chazy want to take part in that is the question.
Mr. Lauren?
Paul Warren, 412 Stutson Road. I've been farming for 43 years, and my wife and I have worked all our life, and I'd like to see where we can pass it on to our kids or our two sons. And the way things are going in the last 2 years, it's been awful rough for farming and paying the bills and paying the mortgages and whatnot. And this would be probably a shot in the arm to give it to my two sons.
Joe Gregoire, Chazy. Back to the question, you say there's no pressure for development rights. If we wanted to, our whole farm could be loaded with houses. We have people all the time coming down, want to buy the road frontage. One of the reasons we put in the agricultural district to help prevent this, because if we weren't in the district, we could sell. We've had a lot of developers over the years want to come in and buy the whole farm because you can see the lake. And you say there's no development pressure. We have a lot of it. And I don't want to see that. I want to see it stayed for farmland and let it stay open so people can enjoy the view of the lake and the geese and all the other animals that are out there. There's a lot of other land for people to build on. That's all I have to say.
Jane Bregware. I just want to, I don't know how much Rodney Brown told you about the whole program, but
He told us everything.
he told us everything. And so that, you know, that in this round of grants, there's $12 million available, but $3 million of it has been earmarked for Long Island, so there's only $9 million for the rest of the entire state. And when we graded the different farms that applied to have the development rights sold, and there were about 15 farms in the whole county that applied, we weighted the strength of their business. That was one of the other characteristics that we gave them points for. Are they a viable farm? Because the program started, I believe, in like '96, and Essex County got in on it right away. And some of these farms in Essex County, maybe they didn't look at the same criteria when they chose. Clinton County did not get into this program until this year when we finally finished our farmland protection plan. That made Clinton County eligible to even apply to have any of their farms. So this is the first round of grants that we've been eligible to even apply farms for. These farms in Clinton County, we sent 3 of them in. They're competing with farms all around the rest of the state except for Long Island for this $12 million. So even if we do get these, we've sent these farms in, and if the town were to give their blessings to it, there's still no guarantee that the state's even going to buy the rights or select any of the farms up here, because they're going to weigh it at how valuable the farms are up here compared to the others that have applied in other parts of the state. So, you know, it might be just a moot point arguing about this because just because we've applied doesn't mean the state's going to automatically purchase these development rights. And who knows how much money there'll be in the future for this program. Don't know whether they'll increase it or decrease it, depends on what happens with the state budget.
Okay. Tom? Did you?
Well, the whole point of this, the program is where there's a threat of development, the farm development rights were to be purchased. There hasn't been proven that there's any threat of development in Chazy. The ag district has been set up to protect the development rights. And now we've got just a redundancy. This is just another layer of getting more money. Just because the money's there, that doesn't mean that we have to go for it. There's just no justification in this. There's no development threat. There's money there for development rights, but I don't see this project has no merit.
Anyway, the gentleman next to you.
I just have one comment. In 2 weeks ago, Sunday paper, it says state rejects lifting, I don't know, did anybody read this? Rejects lifting farmland deed restrictions. Pennsylvania, they want the deed restrictions gone because they got no room for development. I'm not saying that this will ever happen in Chazy, but it did happen in Pennsylvania. They want it gone. The article's right there. So I don't think it comes down to a point of whose farm it is, how much farmland there is, and apparently from what Jane said, it was done by the farming operation, not by the development of the farm itself. It went a lot on the operator, whether or not they were going to be established, which is probably a good point. But I think we ought to look twice as something that may hinder us, not us, our children, great-grandchildren, and so on. There's nothing to do against any individual that's looking to get into this program. And it's certainly not up to us anyhow, it's a state program. But
yeah. Anyone else have anything to say?
With all this, I applied for it, and it's a way out for the older generation and let the younger generation step in.
Well, I'd like a way out for my estimating business too.
I've got 250 acres to sell. I got 250 acres of woods, It's got 60 acres of open pasture, beautiful, you can see the mountains in Vermont, Lake Champlain, what more can you add? Send the buyers. I want to keep my good land.
I don't blame you.
Well, this is what we're asking.
But anyway, we'll,
But you know what's really sad about the whole thing is that people eat 3 times a day, they live in a rural supporting. Nobody has been approved for this program yet in the county. But it just goes to show you that the lousy 1 and 2% that feeds the nation, when they go to the public and say, we'd like your support, we know what the answers are. You should keep right on, and you should all go home, and you should work more hours a day to make sure they can eat cheap. Because what's going to happen down the road is right now, every time they fire a shot in the Middle East, up goes the oil price. Someday, every day they file, something in Russia or wherever the food is coming into from this country, you'll be dependent on food for the same thing as you're dependent on fuel today. And it's coming. We won't see it in our generation, but you'll see it in the next 100 years.
Like
You'll be importing the food to feed the people in this country.
You're looking ahead the same as everybody else is, Duff. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. The same statement you made about the school system is small. It has to be the same as a farm. If it's going to exist, it has to grow. So, I'm not against anybody here as far as any program or whatever. I'm saying, from my opinion, of what the town of Chazy will gain from it. And I don't think there's any
but
pluses
anyway,
for it.
we'll wind this down here. These 2 gentlemen over here, as you say. Is there that, when's this selection going to take place? That's a question I got. Jim, anybody know?
What's this?
When are they going to decide what areas to take it?
Oh, right around the first of the year, after the first of the year.
After the first of the year?
Supposedly, early on after the first of the year. A selection will be made throughout the state. So I was told.
And we don't know.
You don't have any definite time frame then?
No, I would say probably February we'll know, the farmers will know who's been picked and who hasn't been picked.
No, what I'm looking at is time for the town board to digest what was said here tonight and give them time to think about it.
There's nobody here asking for a vote on it tonight. I mean,
I know, I understand that. But just give the board a chance to digest what's been said. I think a lot of new stuff has come up that is, especially Trey's view. Got me thinking. So if there's anything else on this issue, show.
Yeah, I just had one other comment. Talked a little about, I'm sorry, I don't hear anything. Tom, yes. Talked a little bit about development rights purchases where it didn't work. And like Doug said, I'm on the Vermont side of the lake. A lot of the time, Farm Credit deals with all the state of Vermont, 2 counties, and in Clinton and Essex in New York. In Essex County, the farm community has lost a lot of services and really been in decline for a long, long time. And the infrastructure is gone, the farms have left, and there isn't much down there for a farm economy. And that's what happens when you lose it. So that's what, I'm sitting here listening to the reasons why you shouldn't buy farmers' development rights. I'm thinking just the opposite. You don't want that to happen here. You want the farms to stay here. You want economies to continue, not to stop. And one of the competitive tools you've got is selling development rights. Paul Lauren, if you could take a piece of his bundle of rights and sell them for development rights and get $1 for it, he doesn't have to ask that for his son, and his son can continue to farm. Or some other farmer can come in and farm and buy it. It doesn't have to be his son. But it creates that economy and keeps it going with lower investment. And we're really stressed as far as earnings in the entire dairy industry. And New York's number 3 in the country, and the West is coming on strong, and there isn't much way to be competitive when you're dealing with the weather situations, the growing costs, the seasons, all the things that are fixed. And it's just a real competitive issue as far as how do you earn your way out of it and keep that economy going. One of the ways you can do it is keep your land investment down.
You
The
wanted to
problem is
respond to
we're
that?
creating bigger and bigger farms. The government encouraged big schools, we created these mega schools. They didn't work out, they're not good for the community. We're creating bigger and bigger farms. The Midwest, people are moving out of the Midwest because it's big farms, everything is growing. The farm corporations, the biggest farms in this country are corporations, they're not farmers. What we've done is we've run the little farmers out of this country. And now we've got mega corporations.
You're
running
full of
farms.
shit.
I'm afraid not. I'm afraid that you're out of line in that one.
It's no worse than when you make the statement that, you know, we're better off
I've got
without the
some
farmlands in the
facts here,
community.
not bullshit. Now, the state of New York had the development rights for the Erie Canal. They sold that development rights to one developer in Buffalo. They did not advertise for $30,000. The state controller is coming back. What you're looking for is you're looking for free money. The facts are that the government, the major farmers in this country, are large corporations. And we got a millionaires club here. Tyler Farm, 96 to 2000, they had $23 million in subsidies. These are huge farms, huge corporations. Some of them are not even U.S. corporations. So
You know how
don't
those
tell me that
systems
we
work?
don't have things that are getting bigger and bigger.
That Tyler Farm, what was their gross receipts for the year? What was that rate on their percentage of income brought in?
The point is that we're getting bigger and bigger farms.
No,
We've
the
got a
point
huge
is that
farm
if
down.
you put it on a percentage basis of income, it could be 1% of their total income that they produced in a year. They could be bringing in $1 billion in gross receipts.
That could be.
So
The facts
you're
are though, what we got
stating
is more and
$23
more.
million, you're stating just a large sum of money that's not relative to the business that's operating.
Maybe so. What we've got here is the state of New York just issued $62 million for stream protection. Why aren't we going after that, after stream protection?
We do in the county. From the Soil and Water District, we bring into this county, I'm chairman of the Soil and Water District, we bring in excess of $400,000 to $500,000 into this county from the federal level to protect streams and to do different works. A lot of the manure pits that are in the county are coming through that program.
We're in Capo besides,
That's right.
in that Capo. Go join that and see how you feel.
I'm not sure I know what that is.
Well, that's the government watching us so we don't spill manure here or ruin somebody's well and that ain't a cheap outfit to get into.
Well, I think as far as New York State, in '98 we had 392 ag districts, 21,796 farms, and 8.33 million acres of farmland. In 2002, we got 325 ag districts. We lost about 7 ag districts. We got 21,425 farms. We lost about 300 farms. We got 8.5 million acres of land. We gained land. So we got less farmers and more agriculture.
But you know why that is? It's for one reason, and one reason only. The farms get bigger because the small ones can't compete to produce food at the prices that the people are looking to pay for them. Why is it that today, 40 years ago, I can remember my father buying a dozen eggs for 60 cents. The goddamn dozen eggs are still 60 cents today, at the farm level. Milk at the farm level, 70 cents a gallon. The consumer paying $3. How the hell do you survive producing milk for 70 cents a gallon? Beef, pork in the store, $8 a pound beef. We get 56 cents a pound for it. That's why the farms are getting bigger in this country, in order to survive.
That's why the government's giving subsidies.
The government isn't giving subsidies. The government says, in the case of corn, you're allowed to make $2 a bushel, and they make up the difference.
We're getting off the track.
That's all it is.
We're getting off the track.
I'd rather take a full price for what the crops are worth, and you keep your goddamn government subsidies. We don't need a nickel of it. Give us $4 a pound for beef. Give us $3 a gallon for milk, and you take the subsidies and divide them amongst the people. And pay us for what we produce instead of the other way around. Be a better system. A lot better system. And I'd enjoy it more, too. Because I hate handouts, to be quite honest with you. I hate them.
We're getting off the track here.
You're damn right we are.
And everything that was gained is getting lost. I suggest we stop
Save.
at this time.
The real
No,
point
is
is
there
not
any other
whether you
com-
agree with agribusiness or not, it's what is good for Chazy.
Right.
And what does this program mean for Chazy?
Exactly right.
What do the people in Chazy want, and what environment do they want to live in? And there's a lot of arguments on both sides for agribusiness, and I can argue in both ways.
And where's
You
the
know,
program benefit Chazy, anything? Chazy-
Providing
Chazy
for
is-
benefits
the
the farmer.
future, providing for the future with the aesthetics and the type of village and town that we want to live in, that the zoning report said we have the best chance of living in, that the survey done at that time said that's what the majority of the people, the vast majority of the people obviously wanted. And I think there's value in that. Whether you're gonna put a dollar value or whatever, I think there's value in that. I think there's value in these programs. I've been watching them, like I said, for 20 years. And there's value in these programs to preserve this type of land because it needs to be done. And maybe it doesn't need to be done as drastically here as it needed to be done in the Hudson Valley of New York, but it still needs to be done, especially on the scale we're talking about. And that's what we got to look at, the scale we're talking about. It's good for what this town needs.
Okay. Yeah. Is there any other correspondence?
Just go on correspondence, please.
You're into correspondence?
Nothing else? No, nobody else?
Get paid to sit here, folks. Don't be in a hurry.
I'm not in a hurry. I just want everyone to came.
Off the farm issue, I know it's a big issue, but if we could just switch gears to something else that
Yes.
concerns
Name and
Kathy
address.
Ledoux, April, 10 Pleasant Street. The three of us, we'll talk, I'm sure individually, have issues that have to do with our street, our area, and also I'd like to bring up an issue that has to do with, and I'm sure it affects all of you in some way too, with your grandchildren or children, these nephew, whatever, that have to go to school in this area. And it has to do with the safety in which they go to school. I'm going to assume that the town is responsible, excuse me, for the crossing guard situation on Route 9 and on Minor Farm Road, right?
We
No.
pay for the crossing guard.
We
That's all
pay for the crossing
You're not
guard.
responsible
That
for
is
it?
our only responsibility.
That we pay.
Okay, so who is is there anyone responsible?
We
The
have-
state is? or-
We have a very hard time and they're looking constantly for people to do this. And it's hard to find.
Yeah. No,
Nobody wants to do it.
No, anymore. That would be my next
It's
comment.
not because we don't want to do it.
No, I understand. That's
It-
part of my next comment, is my mom, obviously, I'm sure it's no secret, has been doing it this year. It's
Right.
not for low of riches she's doing it.
No.
Anybody that does it out of the kindness of their heart, obviously, like you said.
Right.
It's hard to find somebody to do it. Going over to my parents in the morning, myself and my sister, we're crossing children on our own for quite a while, just because we saw them out there with no way to get across. Cars going back and forth really quickly and not stopping, and these kids were trying to dash in and out and waiting there forever, so we'd go out and see them and just cross them. I don't want to see a horrible, unfortunate accident occur before something is done, is what I'm looking at basically. Has the town ever looked into what a cost it would be, whether the town would do it or the state would do it, as far as a flashing sign on Route 9 or on Minor Farm Road, just to get the traffic and the people more aware of what's going on? For instance, I'll come up going both ways. If I'm coming from the school and I'm at the top of this corner over here on Route 9, I'll stop my van right at the top of the hill. I'm hoping no car's going to come and plow me in the back of the van, in the rear of my van, because I'm trying to let a child cross in the middle of Route 9 and hoping at the same time that the oncoming traffic toward me on the opposite side is going to see what I'm doing and they're going to stop too, hopefully, which doesn't usually occur, but
I don't recall
I didn't know if anybody
ever
had
going
looked
after
into
a light.
the cost of
But-
that. Anybody thought of that?
A light is, that road is state, we would have to go
So
through the
this is-
state
They're both state.
Department of Transportation,
county.
to come up with a survey
Route
Yeah.
nine
to
is state,
determine
the other one's county.
Okay.
We
This
referred
is-
to the state and they told us that what they would do, which they were supposed to put like a ladder type at this crossing here in front of Great Gables next door here. But all they did is put the two parallel lines across.
We haven't even got that
They
in
put
front
up
of school, yeah.
They put up a green sign, and that was their answer to take care of the school. We tried to get them to put a crossing in a couple other places. They said the line of sight wouldn't allow them to put it anywhere else.
And when
And when it's here, I've noticed it many times when I come to school in the morning.
It's bad.
Parents even walking their kids. They cross them at Stewart, they cross them down the road. Nobody comes up to the
Nobody does.
crosswalk to use it.
And we've had a crossing guard here, and this was going on.
Yeah.
And this
No, I
is
know
part
it's
of
all
the
over
reason the
because
crossing
there's
guards
no
were
set.
upset,
Right, there's.
because
Oh, I
they
know
felt
there's out there
responsible,
hollering,
because
believe
kids
me.
were crossing
It's a
places
definite
they weren't supposed to.
We've got kids coming out of the back parking lot of school that are doing racing, passing each other right there in front of the Presbyterian church, and where they're letting off kids and they're trying to cross right there. She's got him, luckily she's got the, I'm glad she's got the nerve to stand out there
Well, the
and
school
and
should
slow 'em
monitor
down and
what's
make
going
them
on in their
count.
parking lot then.
I beg your pardon?
I said the school should monitor what's going on in their parking lot.
Right, no, but I mean, it's still a fact, whether the school does it, whether the town does it, whether the state or the county does it. I just want to know what can we do as a community, as a town, to help our kids out, basically, and to keep them safe.
Come up with someone that wants to do that job, and
We'll
we'll
pay
take
them.
care of the other end.
We'll pay them.
So you
We've been looking.
a light isn't even, we can't push the county?
State and county.
The state, we can apply to the state, I think we've done it years ago, and we were turned down.
But I mean, if we kept, that's what I mean, what if we keep pushing the county, the
We
state to do
just got after
something?
this, that's what I said before, we just got after the state, and this is their answer.
And this
No.
was
They
their
put up
answer.
this crossing, and they put up the green child pedestrian crossing, that's their answer.
That was their answer. Long ways from a light.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I'm wondering
But
how
that's
everybody
state.
else is getting help, and we're not getting any help, and we're waiting for people to come and say, yeah, I'll be a crossing guard. I'm wondering how everybody else is getting any help.
It's very hard to get. Right now, your best answer is to come up with someone that'll do that job. On this.
But though, that, not only can you have to find that person, you have to find somebody who's not afraid to jump out on the road, flagging cars down, hollering and taking their license numbers and reprimanding kids and adults.
If you can find me
And the
individuals, send
biggest,
them to us.
another big thing is to educate the children
Where to cross.
to cross at wherever the crossing is, not just anywhere.
Right, but it's not up to the kids, they're kids. They.
Yeah, but when I was in school, I was a crossing guard, and I was going to school. And the school furnished a crossing guard. That was part of my job, to come out here and cross the kids on the street.
It's traffic.
We had kids from the school, we were school kids, I was going to school. And I was out here crossing kids. I guess the schools aren't,
But things are
they
changing.
want to take the
obviously
responsibility
changing.
now, so they pass it on to somebody else.
Things, yeah. I didn't want to insult you, but things changed since then. Just because the traffic is so darn fast going back and forth on both sections. That's why I said, in lieu of that, yes, we need somebody else. In lieu of that, is there anything else we can do? And how often has it been pushed to the county side? I know you said recently that's how far you
Well,
got.
it would help
But to
One
get
thing that would
something
help
more
is the kids
substantial.
cross where they should cross.
Right. But
You know,
right, but
and
you're
that-
putting that burden on the child.
And that takes education on parents and the school. The kids walk, they gotta be taught where they should be walking.
Right. But that's not all, that's
Yeah.
not always the case, though. I mean, if the school fails to do it, or the parents fail to do it, you still got a child that could be at risk, is what I wanted to bring up to the board.
We understand that, and we tried for the light you're talking about, and Leo gave the answer that we
How long
got.
ago was that?
That was just this fall, when they put up the two new green.
Because this issue
So
was
is there
brought up
any reason why
earlier.
we can't do a petition again and ask for something else, and that wasn't enough?
Actually, if you go to Plattsburgh, they're doing the same thing we are. If you go to MEI, the corner of MEI or Boynton Avenue, there's one crossing guard that sits there and waits for kids to go in. I think that they pretty much, they have lines right in the road just like we do, but they make the kids go in those lines. I mean, they have sidewalks on both sides of the roads, but kids walk down, and instead of, they call it jaywalking or whatever, you're supposed to go through them.
Well, that leads to another,
And those are big
I'll
schools.
leave it at that. I would like,
All right.
I would like us to try
We'll
again,
check
and
it.
see what
We'll-
can be done.
We'll check into it further, but,
Because I know it doesn't just lie in the town, it does lie in the parents and in school and in the village and the county and the state. But if everybody backs away and says, this is only, I can only do so much.
on this road down here, the county road, we had done something, less than a year ago, right?
It'd be a good idea
When
too.
that issue came up.
For your school
Down
magazines
by the
that
bus
go out,
garage, something
you know,
like
you
that.
have a magazine that comes out once a month or something like that, you might want to do something in your newsletter saying, you know, we'd like to bring it to your attention that we're having children passing to the school property and not the proper places, and we'd like to try to educate the parents to make it safer for.
Well, it's not just that, it's educating the people who are behind the vehicles to slow down and
Well,
watch for
actually,
the kids.
we've had some troopers that
Yeah.
have sat in this yard
Right.
lately and
Yeah, well, we all know they don't, that's why I said I'm afraid of getting hit in the back coming over the top of that hill.
troopers that aren't up here enforcing. Call the troopers and you just keep after them.
Right.
So in other words, as far as the,
Till they get tired of
as far as the
hearing, then
village
maybe
and the
somebody will
town.
come up here.
Well, they have been parking here and watching.
I've seen them up there a
I've
few
seen when
mornings.
they park between the two buildings here. We don't want to advertise it, then you'll be looking for it.
Let me check that. What she was just saying, what about the town's newsletter?
We'll put it in.
That's what I'm saying, there's gotta be something else that the town can do rather than saying, gee, this is it, we've already tried this.
Okay, we'll
I
work
just don't
on
want
that.
anything to happen to anybody's kid for, just because we didn't think we could do anymore. You know, it may never happen, but we don't think anything's ever gonna happen till it does.
All right, well, okay, we'll work on this issue. What was the other issue you were talking about? You said you had 2 or 3.
Right.
Issue.
The sidewalk, you brought up the sidewalk.
I was just wondering about the sidewalks and who's responsible to keep them clean in the town?
Pretty much the property owner.
It's just today, it was brought to my attention that a little child almost got hit and, because they weren't able to walk on the sidewalk. The sidewalks were full of snow and the child had to come out into the road around the museum and he wasn't seen. It was a young child. They didn't know who the child was. But because the sidewalks weren't cleaned all through from like Border View out to the school.
We cleaned the bridges.
Oh, I mean the sidewalks
Yeah, I know,
particularly.
but the
not-
property
not-
owner, whoever owns the property, sidewalk in front of your property, keep it clean, so that everybody
And if they're not doing it, how does that get enforced?
does.
It doesn't?
It comes with training, kind of thing.
I know Fred was out there
Yeah,
busting
Fred-
his butt
he
today,
worked hard cleaning
showing
that.
that whole strip of museum land.
Yeah.
But I mean, he couldn't get it
Basically,
done
that's-
before school started. is
You're
what I'm
asking
saying.
who cleans it, that's,
Yeah. I was just
the way it's
curious as to, was it, you know, the landowner, the town, don't they have
landowner.
a little sidewalk plow so that those sidewalks could be clear for walking students, or no?
the property owners have to clean their sidewalk. If you got a
But
sidewalk in front of your
there's a lot
property, you
of-
clean it.
There's a lot of property that is owned by, you know, like the museum,
The museum shovels there.
the store, yeah, but they can't have it prepared in time for kids to walk to school.
The post office, they shovel there.
Yeah, they shovel their sidewalk to the sidewalk, you know.
When you get a big dump of snow like this.
Well, they're
I mean,
supposed to
I
shovel.
understand, but if
they're-
you
you
watch
gotta
them
give them time. I mean,
and
they're- yeah, you're right, they're not
you
gonna
can
have.
watch
shovel
them during the
before they
school
get
day,
snow,
if you sat and watched them,
Within the
the
next
kids
day or
are
so, it
out
should
on the
be-
road.
Right.
They're out on the road and they're walking out on Route 9, trying to get to school. And,
But our town doesn't have
We don't have, no, we're not a
we have a
village.
little tractor, don't we?
We're a town, a village would possibly have sidewalk, like Ross's Point, Champlain.
But do we have a little tractor, don't we, right here in the back? That you use right for
He's
this
got
parking
a
lot?
tractor, he keeps the bridges here clean, he also has to go to West Chazy and keep those bridges
No, I
clean.
mean a small
And you're
one,
talking
a
about-
sidewalk. I don't mean anything that's for,
No,
isn't there one that's here?
yeah, but we don't, that's
That's private for this
Lawnmower.
parking lot, you don't want to use it? Or-
No, it's a lawnmower. There's no plow equipment with
But
that,
is it the town's?
right?
The town has just that little tractor that mows with it. There was one that had a blower, but that's what he was using to clean the bridges. I think what it would amount to is, you know, there's no sidewalk district per se in the town like you have in other municipalities. So there's no funds there to pay for somebody to clean sidewalks. And then if you start doing one little stretch of sidewalk for one person, you're gonna have to do the whole town. And it's just not a feasible thing.
Is that something
Town-
else
And they want it
that
done
you
like
would
now.
include
In the budget.
in your town newsletter, that, just a reminder that all.
They hear it every day.
Well, can't we, like, put it
It's
in
on,
again?
it's on the radio every day.
Stick it in there again for that.
That
Your
the town of
sidewalk,
Chazy
buddy.
is responsible for cleaning their own sidewalks.
Well, pretty much.
Because you also have that big business that's closed now, Chazy Hardware, and there's a huge area that isn't really
I
done.
know.
It's a lot of area in the town that isn't easily accessed for young children. I mean, kids from first grade up, that's 6 years old,
Yeah, I
are being
realize
made
that.
to walk alone and slipping and sliding. And I understand that I'm not saying it's your responsibility, I'm just saying that maybe some of the citizens of the town aren't aware or aren't being told.
We
Or
can
held
put that in our
accountable.
town newsletter, too.
We could have some kind of a,
It's just a safety concern.
Yeah, what about in school, busing all the kids?
What about?
No kids walk, school picks them up. If you live here at Grey Gables, the bus picks them up, Grey School.
Only if they're in kindergarten. Above the age of kindergarten, they have to walk.
yeah, if your brother
They
is
have
in
to
kindergarten, he can get a ride, but you can't get a ride if you're in first grade.
They will not pick up in the village. And my kids don't walk, I bring mine myself. I mean, and they're 12
Because
and
I'm
14.
saying with mine, it's too dangerous, just,
Yeah,
there's no sidewalk.
That must be a policy of the school district,
Right.
because I know we're in Beatontown School District, where I live in West
It is
Chazy,
their
they've got a
policy.
school, kids live across the street. They get on the bus, and the bus delivers them right across the street.
It's actually.
Nobody walks there.
Yeah, and that is
So
the
this
school
town,
policy.
this school.
It's up to the school district to do that.
Right.
The school district does it that way also because of the expense, at the expense of possibly having to add more buses to
Right.
pick up every single student that goes to the school. You look at money now.
I mean, we could cross our kids right in front of the house, that's not a problem, right in front of, in the store, area, so, I mean, but crossing guard aside, they'll be on the right side of the road, but all the way down, they still have to be in the road walking. So we just wanted to bring that up as another part of the safety issue. If you're gonna put it into the letter, that would be great if you could adopt some kind of a, warnings that more to say, you're not holding up your end of the line,
We'll put it in the newsletter on both issues. In the meantime, if you come up with someone that wants to be a crossing guard here in Route 9, get in touch with Sue, or Leo, or myself.
When was it the last time it was in the paper?
Last year, I have to check that issue, and you guys have put it in at least almost in 20 years.
It was in
I'll
the-
double check. Okay. The thing now is gonna have to be a newsletter here, that's only being done 3 times a year. So your next newsletter is gonna be in the spring, which is gonna be a
And
new
the
point for
purpose,
the
right.
sidewalk. It won't be a new point for your crossing guard.
Right.
We can address that, maybe every issue. I have no problem putting that in. In the fall, if we issue that, we have to address the property with the commodity, something else. But I'll put it in anyway. You can always have a late spring snow. And I don't need to kind of backwards, that's the next winter, March, and that's fine.
Just like that. Anything else?
Third issue. We heard lots on the farm, so not to say that wasn't important either, but I was listening, I agreed with just about everybody on different points too, but the third is right in our yards. on Pleasant Street and on Route 9 in the area where we live. There was a letter that that the board was given. You have a letter with pictures that was given to the board.
That's me.
Where is Pleasant Street? I'm sorry.
Right
Right
across
across
from
the
that.
post office. Where it looks really dilapidated in the front.
This is
I
just
never got a
a
letter.
black and white copy. It was sent to,
Would you say?
It was given to,
it was sent to George Dino.
did you get one, Stan?
It was actually hand delivered to here, to the town.
Oh, to the town office.
Who'd you give it to?
There was 4 copies given to Sue to give to Jerry, Dutch, Staub,
I never got a copy.
Staub, and
Well, you can take a look at it.
This looks like an issue. we're
Mr.
working.
West.
Probably in George's folder.
And that, they were color photos.
Yeah, well, Mr. Dino. Well, this is an issue we've been
This
working
is
on.
zoning, yeah. This is an issue where you don't have a private new homeowner coming into the area taking pride in their property. What we have is a cesspool, basically, that just gets worse every year. Before the village came in with their water, we had bubbling sewage in the backyard. We've always got refrigerators, appliances, wood stoves, as you can see in the photograph coming out of the back of the garage.
Well, that's-
Piles of bags and bags and bags and bags of garbage, attracting rodents. We've got demolition / NASCAR fireworks going on all day long, 20-foot trailers being cut into pieces.
Yeah.
And every
We're-
tenant has the same thing going
we're-
on. It's
We're already working on issues of the same type. We'll include this with it. And,
So if you could get the color photos, they speak much better
I'm sure
than.
and we're working on it.
I'm not sure I know
Yeah.
But we'll include these with the ones we're already looking at.
We've actually tried to go different routes besides being here. We've actually spoken with the landowner, who has, in all fairness, spoken with the tenants. And in all fairness, they clean up for one day. Everything gets thrown in the garage. And then the next day, it's back out and worse. And then it's as if we have to, the owner of the property, who then has to pursue the tenants. And then when we've also spoken with Mr. West, who is the code enforcement officer, who has also gone to the landlord and said, you need to do something. And it's been continual. And as citizens of this town, and as taxpayers, we don't feel that it is our duty to continually
police that one area.
police that area and have to look at that. That's the view from my front porch. That's the view from Sandra's house and from Kathy's house. And that is a minor.
That's just one day.
This is one day.
What
And
laundry's been hanging there for-
that laundry's been there since the summer. I mean, it's constant.
There's cedar trees right there where they're roasting bonfires on those.
Today, there were
big
6
cedars.
snowmobiles
Yeah,
there.
we're working on the
And
issue.
they have no property.
We'll get back to you. Okay.
It just hurts, you know, our taxes are going up, and the property value is going down. When you come down and drive down that street, or from the top of Route 9 and take a look at what that dump is.
They backed that steel trailer in there and within an hour started cutting it apart with a welding machine, and it doesn't make sense. It's a steel trailer. That isn't a junkyard. They don't have a right to have refrigerators and broken washers and dryers and steel trailers that they're cutting up. It's not a junkyard. They aren't permitted to have a junkyard.
Hopefully with the
We're
bicentennial.
working on these things.
Does that come along with the bicentennial issue? Is that going to?
No.
Not only for that reason, but I
No,
mean,
no,
is that?
There's a zoning law.
Oh, yeah, we
It's
know.
a zoning
yeah.
law, we're working on it. We have problems in
That's
other
one thing,
parts
if
of the
everybody
town.
along Route 9 and
And
Melissa
we'll
did that,
just,
wouldn't it look
we'll
beautiful?
include this one with it.
But like I said, Kathy, we're not here as a first-ditch effort to try to correct the problem. It's been years that we've been trying to correct the problem. The problem started when Mr. Trombley owned the property, and he did what he could, but it's been different.
Well, it's not, like you said, it's a rental, and it's pretty basic needs met, you know? And the people that are there don't have a whole lot and I don't imagine are a lot really concerned with, you know, what it looks like for property value.
Okay, we'll continue with correspondence, Leo. You got any?
Okay, I got a letter from the Cook County Health Department. 2003 influenza immunization season was a great success. Cook County Health Department could not have served the people of North Country without the involvement of community partners such as yourselves. On behalf of Cook County Health Department, we'd like to thank you for lending the facilities so that we can have influenza clinic throughout the county. I look forward to working with you in the future. Lori Hamer, RN Supervising Public Health Nurse, County Health Department. And I received a letter from David Nealon, Administrative Law Judge for Canadian Pacific Railway. They acknowledge the receipt of the Town Board's Resolution Number 104 dated November 6th concerning the above-named private grade rail crossing, which is Cemetery Crossing, milepost 176.98, West Chazy. This resolution will be considered as a petition pursuant to Section 91 of the Railroad Law. Your request has been transmitted to the department's grade crossing project section for review. And I gave copies of the letters from the County Highway Department on the speed zone that's been established on Washington Avenue. That's all I got.
got that.
Market?
And we got,
Market?
yeah,
Can I just thank the people for coming 1 minute? And, if they want to leave, they can, you know, if they want to stay.
well, they're welcome to stay.
You're welcome to stay, but if you want to leave, that's, you know. Thank you.
We received our sales tax portion, which is a little more than what we anticipated. 47,912.31, which is good news. I think this, so we covered that. All right, we'll go to Jim Sessom's. Yeah, I know. Jim Sessom's out, so he won't be here to give a report on the Highway Department. And Mr. Coffey, you're next.
Okay, nothing very much. I sent the fire protection contract for West Chazy to Leo. Has that been signed? Or?
I gotta go to their meeting tomorrow night when we're all there together.
Okay, I'm gonna get it signed. Send me one copy. And the other thing is, actually, before I came here, I got a call from the law firm that represented Level 3 Communications, and I sent them a letter. There was no disagreement on the assessment because that was established by the state, and there was some problems on the suitability of this order they're going to submit to the judge. But anyways, that's been worked out, so that'll be probably submitted sometime next month. That's all.
We'll go on to resolutions. You want to do resolutions?
Okay. First resolution you have in front of you is Phil Forch's term has ended on the Board of Assessment Review and needs to be reappointed.
Second.
Councilor Devon made the motion to adopt the resolution, seconded by Councilor Rovers. Roll call, Councilor Rovers?
Yes.
Councilor Pico? Yes. Councilor Devon?
Yes.
Councilor Conway?
Yes.
Supervisor Demas? Next one is on the year-end meeting. I have it down as Monday the 29th at 7 p.m. unless you want a different date or time.
It's good. Make a motion to accept it that day. I'll second.
Counselor Rovers made the motion, seconded by Counselor Spiegel. Roll call, Counselor Rovers?
Yes.
Counselor Spiegel? Yes. Counselor Devlin?
Yes.
Counselor Trombley?
Yes.
Absent. Supervisor Dean. Next one is, oh yeah, that's, I have an application here from Gregory Blow, for property that is between 86 and 88 Route 22 and the Olena Road, West Chazy, which up towards Scioto. That, there was, last board meeting was brought up about it having junk cars there, so he's applying for a junkyard license. He said he doesn't plan on doing anything commercial, but just because of the fact he's got those vehicles back there. Being that I'm presenting the application to you tonight, that you have, according to the law, less than 2 weeks and not more than 4 weeks to have a public hearing. So that would fall into effect on the 29th, the year-end meeting, to be able to have a public hearing.
Is that the solution to the problem, if someone's not in compliance? If you grant them a
I hope
junkyard
not, that's
license?
what I was just thinking. Oh, we don't have a junkyard.
To have a junkyard license, the only way he can have it is
He's gotta
he
be-
has to adhere to regulations.
I know, but right now he has vehicles, he's not in compliance. He does not have a junkyard license at present.
Right. But if he gets a license,
I know.
He's gonna have to
We're
put-
telling him to clean it up.
he's gotta put up a fence.
That's all he has to do
I know,
is
but why are we
put-
telling him to clean it up instead of granting a junkyard license? So anybody who has more than 2 vehicles in your yard that is not licensed, that they come and request a junkyard license, if we give it to them, what's the sense of having this?
That's up to you, I'm just saying what
You might as well
happened. He's
take the zoning
applying,
laws and throw them away.
and we've got to provide him with a public hearing. Whether you pass a resolution that he can have one or not, that's up to you.
Mr. Dash.
I think what she's asking now is, I think she understands about that, what she's saying
yes,
is,
I
why isn't it
understand.
currently being enforced?
Exactly, why are we enforcing these laws?
Well, this is what
We are allowing people to keep junk in their yards.
we
He
brought
wouldn't have
up.
gotten that far.
This is what-
I did go down, Kathy, and see where it was. What it is, it's off of Route 22, next to where the Ski-Doo place is, and there's a field that sits off of the road 300 or 400 feet, and what he's got 3 or 4 old cars that they horse around with in the field. You know,
So
whether you
clean it
want
up,
them horsing
yeah.
around with it or not, I don't know, but because the fellow that was in here at the last meeting was complaining about him having extra vehicles and horsing them around, which there's no noise, zoning or anything like that. All I know is that's why the individual is here, because he wants to keep the extra cars in order to
So again,
horse around or whatever you want to call
we
it.
grant a junkyard license to allow them to be in
You bet.
non-compliance,
We haven't.
instead of making them clean it up.
He's requesting.
We haven't.
He's requesting, okay.
We haven't granted any junkyard license, and we gotta have a public hearing on it.
Okay,
The
fine.
public hearing is
Fine.
December 29th at 7 o'clock. Right? Mr. Dash.
Before this goes to the board for a public hearing and request for a license, it should go before the planning board. There's been no application before the planning board. I've got this letter where the application was sent before the county, but the town planning board hasn't seen anything on it yet.
Well, then I don't know what Bob has done with it.
Yeah,
far as
again,
I
we're
know.
talking about protocol here.
Yeah,
The proper
protocol.
protocol should have been.
And before that, the zoning.
It should come before the planning board, and the planning board should make its recommendations, so you have some kind of a.
But the resolution says it's presented to the planning board, doesn't it?
Pardon?
Doesn't the resolution?
Well, that's just something I copied. I didn't know if it had been or not. He's saying it hasn't been, so then
It hasn't.
We'll see that you get a copy of it.
But we're gonna
supposed to go to
meet,
them
we meet
first for
Monday night,
approval.
and we don't even have the application for us.
Well, as far as I know, he applied to Bob. He filled out an application to Bob. What he's done with it, I don't know.
Bob should have known.
At least I was
Go to the county first?
It doesn't have to go to the county first, but it does have to go to the town planning board.
No, Tom. The idea is, he has applied. It's in the junkyard law, municipal law, I forget which it is now, that the town,
My only suggestion
when it's
is.
presented to the town board has no less than 2 weeks, no more than 4 weeks to have a public hearing. So this is why we're calling for a public hearing on that 29th.
But what Tom.
They can go till next year before they decide on it. They can wait till the planning board reviews it, gets back to them. The application can just sit there until this all happens, but
But we
the
do
law says
have-
they have to have a public hearing.
But we do have to have the public hearing. This is
But I
what
think
we're
what
doing.
Tom is saying is supposed to go to the planning board before it comes to the town board.
Well, the town board should refer it to the planning board, is what Leo's saying.
Yes, we will.
Just refer it over to the planning board.
But in order to
For
cover
further-
the other end of it, we have to have our public hearing on it.
But that's when an application is
Deadline.
complete. That's a completed application, and the application isn't complete until you go through all the steps. So they have not come to the planning board first, so the application cannot be considered complete. Now, unless the junkyard licensing has got different language in it. But I would suggest that your application is not complete if the planning board hasn't rendered an opinion on it.
Well, I just put the resolution in there. You want to pass on it? Go ahead.
This 1990 survey, it says here, Junkyard were strongly opposed in all sections of the town. How often do they update these surveys?
This survey that we've
Well,
been
that
making
was
reference
done.
to all evening is 13 years old.
That was council meeting.
Let me
I'm asking,
remind
how often do
you,
they
let me remind
update
you
these?
that that survey is 13 years old, and in that survey, it says that it shall be updated every 5 years and possibly 10.
Okay?
You know, all I can tell you is, it's not our
And
fault
I
that it's
agree.
not
I'm
updated.
I'm not disputing that, I'm just saying, information is 13 years old, that's all I'm saying, Doug.
Well, anyway, you want to bypass
It's the
that
one of
resolution?
existence.
I'm gonna send our neighbors to you.
Well, I'm not going to vote
Well-
to make a motion or a second, so
Okay.
if somebody else wants to, that's fine.
Next one then is on the budget transfers.
I'll make the motion for the budget transfers.
May I have a second? Okay, Counselor Devon's made the motion, second by Counselor Rovers on the budget transfers. Roll call, Counselor Rovers.
Yes.
Counselor Spiegel.
Yes.
Counselor Devon.
Yes.
Counselor Trombley.
Yes.
Supervisor Dino, yes. Good. That's all the resolutions I have except for payment of claims after the review of those.
That's it. That's it. Does any member of the board have nothing?
I have one thing. I called a few of the companies in town of Chazy for the lighting contest, the Christmas lighting contest, and we've gotten a few extras, which I'll share with you after we went through, but there's a total right now of 6, possibly 7, instead of the usual 1 to 3. We need to decide when we're going around to look at the lights.
We're gonna advise them.
And then we're just going to go in the paper.
And there's so many.
That's what, usually a week or so
Yes.
before Christmas, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yes.
Then what, we hand the award out on the 29th?
It's usually after Christmas when it's
Yeah.
done, where it's still when the awards are.
29th is after Christmas.
Yeah, we can do it at the 29th meeting. Right.
And I just need to let the people know if we are going to ask them to send the money, send the gift themselves, the donation themselves to the individual, or if we are going to be doing it, we need to make that decision. Something like that.
Good. I guess that's it, other than for auditing bills. I want to thank everyone for coming.